Storytime! So once upon a time in grade 5, I was going through this really strange phenomenon where like 5 of my adult teeth decided to all come in at once. Now I already had this really weird obsession with when I had a loose tooth, I loved to like pluck it out of my face like berries off of a vine. So as you can imagine, sitting there with 5 loose teeth in my mouth felt like I was in an orchard on a hot summer's day. My brothers had just rewatched The Exorcist with me a few nights before while babysitting, so its cinematic masterpiece was still ever fresh in my mind as I sat there not listening to my teacher drone on about numbers, secretly popping my teeth out with my tongue and letting my mouth fill with blood. Till I noticed my dear old classmate Tristane, who used to eat rulers and pick on me, was staring at me. So I looked him dead in the eyes, opened my mouth slowly and let all of the teeth and blood just dribble out onto the desk. Then I said in a low grumble, "You will die tonight." He started screaming and then I had to go to church.
There's this creepy legend about a secret Disney park called Duck Pond. It was supposed to be the most unique of all the Disney parks because it was located underneath a pond. The premise was that it was entirely about Donald Duck. So they had his character walking around everywhere. All the rides and snacks were Donald Duck themed. Well, one day something went very wrong and Disney decided to close the park for good. They also tried to hide it forever so nobody would ever know about its existence. Apparently, children started to go missing, and the rumor was that one of the employees in the Donald Duck costume was stealing them. But because there were so many duck costumes, they had no idea which employee was the culprit. And like I said, because of all these strange things happening there, they had to close down the park. Now, this is supposedly just a rumor, a legend, a creepypasta, if you will, but I'm always so intrigued to hear about secret Disney parks because it is pretty scary.
This is why you should always keep pictures of your parents. A little girl named Olivia who lived a very quiet life decided to check her homework assignments that were posted online. The teacher posted that they needed to write down their favorite memory with their family as well as bring a photograph. Olivia then writes about how her and her mom play dolls every night in the basement before bed and that she has a lot of fun doing so. She finishes her paragraph and then looks in her dad's drawer for a photograph of mom. She only found pictures of her mom from high school but decided to use it anyway. Olivia goes to bed and wakes up the next morning. Once she arrives at school, the teacher then says, "Let's start presenting our project." Then the teacher called Olivia's name to present. Olivia then begins to read about how her and her mom play dolls every night and then pulls out the photograph. As soon as Olivia pulled out the photograph, her teacher's face goes numb. She then asks Olivia if she can take a closer look at the photograph. She then recognized her mom as one of her previous students. Then the teacher asks, "Where did you get this photo?" Olivia says, "My dad keeps them in his drawer." The teacher, shocked, sits down Olivia and pulls out an old newspaper. The newspaper headline, "Local high school teen murdered, boyfriend gone missing." The teacher then looks at Olivia and says, "Your mom has been dead for 14 years.
This is why you should never talk to strangers in an elevator. One day, a surgeon was working the night shift at a hospital. He just finished his operation on a patient and was going to the basement. He entered the elevator and there was one other woman already inside. They were casually chatting when the elevator door opened and another woman was about to enter. But the surgeon looked horrified. He quickly slammed the close button and punched the highest floor of the building. Surprised, the woman asked why he was being so rude and wouldn't let the other woman in the elevator with them. The surgeon explained that in this hospital, all patients wear white wristbands with their names printed on them, but the red wristbands are placed on all of the corpses. The surgeon then looks to the woman in the elevator with him and says, "That was the same woman I just operated on. She died on the operating table. Didn't you see the red wristband she was wearing?" The woman in the elevator with him just smiled, raised her arm, and said, "You mean like this one?"
This is why you should always watch what you say in public. In the late 1970s, a man began breaking into homes in order to assault the families inside of them. After dozens of attacks and no suspects in custody, the citizens were totally on edge, so the police decide to host this town hall meeting so they can discuss the situation out in public. During the meeting, a local man stands up and says, "I would totally kick that guy's ass if he came anywhere near my wife." Then, in a crazy, ironic turn of events, that angry man and his wife become the next victims. Following their assault, the attacker completely changes his behavior. He goes from kind of petty home invader to full-blown serial killer, targeting only married men and their wives. When decades later, police finally identify Joseph D'Angelo as the killer, as they're going through old photos from the case, they make a startling discovery about his motives. D'Angelo had attended that town hall meeting.
Am I the asshole for keeping tampons and pads in a basket for my students? I'm 38 male and a father of 2 daughters. I teach high schoolers, and since we started off the school year recently, I've been noticing our female students have been having some issues and it's hard for them to find tampons and pads when they need them. As a father, I understand that those are essential for women. I bought a bunch of tampons and pads and placed it in a basket in our class so our female students can grab one at any time. The whole class loves it and nobody says anything, and overall it's helpful. My colleague Susan, 60 female, thinks it's inappropriate that I have that for my female students and told me it's weird because I'm a male. Periods are natural and they happen, so I wanted to make it convenient for my students and they love the basket.
Story time about the worst day of my life. So a little background information. I was 16 at the time, and I was either in 8th grade or 9th grade, but I really don't remember. And I had this boyfriend who we're going to call Cameron. We had been dating for 3 years, but before him and I got together, we were best friends. Well, I also was in a friend group with myself, Amber, and this girl named Sky. Now, I wouldn't really call Sky a pick-me girl. She was more of a jealous best friend. For example, the one day we went shopping for dresses, and I picked this one out that I really liked and that looked super good on me. Amber was like, OMG, you look so beautiful. And then Sky, she was like, that dress is ugly and it makes you look fat. Well, after that, I told her I didn't care what she said and that I was going to get the dress anyways. Well, she didn't like the fact that I wasn't going to listen to her, so she didn't talk to me for 2 whole weeks. And then after, she texted me saying that she forgives me, even though I didn't apologize, but okay. Well then, me being stupid, I introduced her to my boyfriend. Bad idea, like for part 2.
When my wife came home, she brought burgers and had the biggest grin. She said to me, quote, I got rid of that stupid fucking toy dinosaur. I then ran upstairs and saw that it wasn't on the shelf. I looked everywhere in our room because she could have hid it, and I looked in her car. It was nowhere. I started crying a lot, and I went into our bathroom and cried there for 10 minutes. My wife came, and I asked what she did with my dinosaur. She said she gave it to a homeless shelter. My wife told me how, quote, it's just a fucking toy dinosaur. Stop crying. I told her to leave because I didn't want to talk to her anymore. She left, and I cried in the bathroom for an hour. Eventually, my 8-year-old knocked on the door because she was hungry. I gave her food and kept crying. This happened a few hours ago, and I've been crying because this toy dinosaur means so much to me. She went to her friend's house, and she has been texting me and calling me saying how I'm overreacting. I want to know what I should tell my kids, because I've been crying, and they've...
Part 2 about why it's never going to be in a best friend group of 3. Like I said, Brittany hated it whenever Mia and I would have our own conversation, and I sat in Becky's spot in gym class, and then she got mad at us because I wanted to finish my conversation with Mia. So she goes over with her other friends that literally bully Mia and I. So at the end of gym class, she walks up to both of us with Brooklyn, and she literally is just standing there. And then Brooklyn goes, do you need me to do it for you? Me and I look at each other like, what the fuck is going on? And then Brittany's like, no, I just wanted to tell you guys that I don't want to be friends with you anymore. She was like, you guys are just so fake. Like, you never include me in anything. Which was completely not true, but we were like, whatever. So then the next day at school, Brittany comes up to Mia and I, and she's like, hey guys. Like, this bitch was bipolar as fuck. And we're like, we thought you didn't want to be friends with us anymore. And she was like, no, I just meant I didn't want to be best friends. Story time about how my ex-boyfriend accused me of cheating on an all-girls trip. So a little background information, I was 14 or 15 around the time, and it was the summer of my freshman year. So within the last few weeks of my 8th grade year, the more popular boys asked me out. And we're gonna call him Carson. He wasn't like super popular at the school, but I was like a medium maybe. I was raised in a super strict household, where the only phone that I pretty much had was one that was able to call 911 and my parents. And I especially was not allowed to be talking to boys. So Carson had the great idea of giving me his old phone, and throughout the summer I would text him on there. Well, I started realizing him getting really toxic. Anytime that he would see my Snapchat location change, he would be like, where are you going? Why didn't you tell me you were going here? So I started distancing myself a little bit from him, also because our relationship was just moving way too fast. Within the first month of us dating, he was talking about wanting to marry me. Like for part 2.